Hey there, welcome to episode 123 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. Today we are going to talk, I forgot to tell you what time it is. Today we are recording at 12:20 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas on this Wednesday, March 18th, 2026. We normally publish on Wednesday, sometimes in the morning, so we're almost there. Today's title and topic, cooking versus eating out. I don't know if I was thinking cooking at home, but hopefully you get the idea. Cooking versus eating out, comparing my history of where I source my victuals. If you're not familiar with the Quaggling Sand audio program, you're in the right place to learn more. First of all, Quaggling Sand is a technical term I coined when I was very young. Think low single digits years. You probably refer to this condition as pins and needles. It's the return of circulation to some part of your body. Think like a hand or an arm or a foot, whatever. When circulation is returning, and maybe you were laying on your arm or sitting on your foot, or vice versa. Who knows? Quaggling Sand. In this case, it is a solo audio program, a collection of tales, stories, recollections, as though sand were quaggling in my mind, where the memories are. So that's this audio program. There will probably never be any guests, so you get to enjoy me, myself, and I recounting these and the other things. Cooking versus eating out. Today's title and topic. Hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I'll read to you. It's one sentence today. The links are just the usual two. So let's get started so we can get finished on this very warm Wednesday, just afternoon. Today's summary. There was a substantial window of time where I could not imagine cooking anything more complicated than a sandwich. Today, I cannot easily imagine eating food prepared in a restaurant. Sounds very dramatic. Not really. Quaggling Sand Home. Quaggling, spelled just like it sounds. Quoggling. Sand, S-A-N-D. QuagglingSand.com, no spaces. And the profile page linking everything, which is 5 years old this month. I don't think I found out what day. They don't actually tell you. Whoever they are. There's no, signed up on this date. But I located the email that I received to confirm my registration with buymeacoffee.com when I registered the Dan Hugo profile there. And it was in March. I think it was right mid-March, but March 2021. So we're 5 years old on that. It's basically a free-form profile, or free-form link tree, I should say. So the blank slate of profile page is where I keep links to all of my various audio programs and productions, different projects. There's some biographical information and some affiliate links. You do not need to buy me a coffee or spend any money, but the affiliate links are things I actually use, including some of my favorite coffee beans from Amazon. And if you'd like to do the equivalent of dropping some coins in the tip jar, so to speak, any and all funds that arrive through buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo or even ko-fi.com/DanHugo, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. These, there's no requirement. As I said, everything I do is basically free. Not worthless, but free. Any such funds would go towards coffee or coffee accessories. These are what power my various efforts. Don't forget also the Buy Me an Update audio program is published first, hence the name, at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts, a 5-minute or shorter, 5 minutes or more brief, I don't know, 5 minutes or less, every Monday morning. Last week's, the week previous audio episodes, a quick summary of those, and then any news and announcements upcoming. After it's published at buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo/posts, it is published through the usual channels like a normal podcast. Links to everything again at that page. 5 years old. Crazy. What was I doing when I was 5? I was coming up with scientific terminology. The family victuals. Here's some background. My mother's side of the family was, and to a lesser extent today still is, all Italian. The notion of army-sized tables of multi-course meals was not uncommon, with an example being a Thanksgiving dinner, which of course would have guests, sometimes a few, sometimes more, which began early. And this is when I was around, so by then my mother's mother, excuse me, my mother's mother was much older. I understand that in the old days it was even more food, but I can recall a table, a spread with a full turkey, a big ham, lasagna, stuffed mashed potatoes, salads, other vegetables, cheesecake, maybe other pastries or other desserts, Italian strudel, cream puffs, who knows. All prepared over the course of days in a little kitchen, a normal sized kitchen, not a commercial sized kitchen by comparison. My grandmother, kind of nuts, actually, wherever she is now, she is stuffing souls with more food than they asked for. Certainly. There is a Ray Romano bit where he says his mother or grandmother, I can't remember, but my grandmother in this case would say, "Are you still hungry?" And you'd say no, and you'd get some food. So didn't matter. You're getting food. My father's side of the family was equally into food. In fact, the story goes that my dad used to go to my mom's house when they were dating so he could join in on the Italian snacks after he was done eating at his house. And they would have reasonably large meals. They leaned more into the Irish, English style foods, I guess. Liver and onions. Ugh. But anyway, his father did a lot of the cooking in his home, from what I understand, and this remained true even when I visited their retired home in Punta Gorda. That is his parents, my grandparents. Punta Gorda, Florida, which is no more, of course, thanks to, well, I mean, I'm not laughing at that, but I guess it got taken off the map. I don't know if I'm assuming they've rebuilt since then. But we were there when I was around 10 years old. They and we, during that summer, caught a lot of fish with rod and reel. They lived in Florida, after all. On the Gulf side, they had a nice fishing boat. We'd go out fishing. That was fun. So we would catch and eat. We had a lot of fish dishes. This included black tip shark as well, which was actually very good. If you've never had shark, it's delightful. Sorry, sharks. Pretty good stuff. I honestly don't remember eating at restaurants at all, except for when we went to Disney World. So we were basically eating what we caught and eating at home pretty much most of the time. My parents were both working when we were young. So where my grandparents, when I was young, were cooking big meals in their homes. I guess when you're home all day, you got time for it. But my parents were working, both working parents. So while we did not have homemade meals often, we had them sometimes. We were not completely left out in the cold, but it came down to time and coordinating schedules, especially as we got older. We all got older. We also leaned heavy into the old TV dinner. Remember those? Basically looking out for our own selves and our own meals through the week. Again, on our own schedules and whatnot, especially as advancing into high school and whatnot. So not to mention some fast food now and then, occasional restaurants here and there. And in high school and into college, on-campus cafeteria and eating out at restaurants again. I worked at McDonald's, I worked at Fuddruckers, and was basically all in on convenience and cheap. Well, what is cheap, really? It turns out that they're not as cheap as you would think, especially if you're looking for actual nutrition. So I was off to work at some point, again, through high school. I mentioned that the restaurants I worked at, we did live at home, but for my part, working at the two restaurants and keeping a weird schedule, often with working parents, even having access to our kitchen, whatever we would want to cook ourselves was not motivation enough to be so creative. And I will point out, I didn't write this down, but I did, like I mentioned, my grandmother going nuts, cooking all the time. So I would participate in that. I could make the cheesecake. I was always the pasta tester, making the lasagna, whatever. So I would participate. So I was certainly an assistant, but I just wasn't. I wouldn't sit around and say, you know what, I'm going to make some lasagna right now, unless it was a microwavable thing. And there were such things. I cannot remember the name of it, but there was these cardboard boxes. They were like little single serve cardboard tray things. you pull the top off and then rest it back on there to cover any microwave-induced explosions. Throw in the microwave for like 5 minutes, and there you were. You've been eating a little lasagna. I hesitate to call it that because, obviously not homemade, etc. In college, we had no kitchen, just a sink and a little microwave in our dorm room for my duration on the campus there. Good for ramen or mac and cheese, and those are both staples. At any given time, if you ran out, somebody would be able to loan you one of theirs, conveniently packaged, ready to go. But not much more. We didn't really cook beyond that. How could we? Right? My fondness for Thai food in the Hat, among other common destinations when we would go out. And we had a pizza place called Checkerboard Pizza in the equivalent of a student union. And I had my work-study job, so I always had enough money for a pizza now and then, or obviously some Thai food by my senior year. I've talked about that before. So I didn't really have much flexibility. It was either the dining hall or heading out, spending my work-study money. Once I headed up north to Silicon Valley in 1993, though, we had a kitchen, lived next to an Albertsons, which I think was Lucky's at the time. Meals were simple, and we still had ate lunch. We still ate lunch. I wrote at lunch because I should be fired. We ate lunch out with our work colleagues. So a lot of Togo's. Togo's sandwich restaurant was in the same parking lot as my first job. So Supermac, when I was working at Supermac, we just walk across the parking lot to the Togo's. Occasionally we would go out somewhere else, but a lot of Togo's. Yay. I'm fine with Togo's. Some people don't like Togo's. For a time, I think they were better than Subway. I don't know about today. I don't even know if they're still in business. I used to like Quiznos, but they were not as convenient, and I don't even know if they're still in business. They might not be. Toasted sandwiches, go figure. I moved to the Valley, Silicon Valley, in the summer of 1993. I've talked about that many times. I would say it was around 1996 or 97. I was working at Apple the first time when I actually started to learn how to cook actual meals that involved actual cooking. I had continued to enjoy Thai food. I've done an entire episode on Thai food, and had my favorite family-owned restaurant to learn from. So I had some tutoring to make cashew chicken, garlic chicken, Thai basil, some basic pan items. Pad Thai is actually more challenging, has more ingredients than you would think, and it's best cooked in a wok. I did not have a wok, so I made do. I moved into a house in around 1997 or 1998 and lived there until I moved back to Phoenix in when was it? 2000. It was 2000. No, it was 2001. Sorry, 2001. I've told that story many times. How do I not remember? There was less cooking, even though we had this house with like a normal size kitchen. It was a larger kitchen than in my apartment that I had lived in previously, but we're just too busy with the Silicon Valley grind. So I really didn't cook at home so often. I'm not really a big baker, so I don't even remember if we ever baked anything in the oven in that kitchen. I moved back to Arizona in 2001, August. August of 2001, early August, and lived near my parents' home. It was about 13 miles, I think. So I had a combination of joining them for meals or making simple things in the kitchen of the home I was renting. And as I moved back to Silicon Valley for round 2 in 2005, I was either commuting on the train, the Caltrain, to San Francisco from Sunnyvale and eating lunch and sometimes dinner up in San Francisco, which is not a horrible thing. Or I was working super long hours at Palm or Jawbone or wherever I was working after salon.com. So grabbing meals out was just easier, joining coworkers and so on. The trip to coffee shops, independent or Pete's, Starbucks sometimes. But Sunnyvale had a lot of independent coffee shops, which was convenient, including 2 and arguably 3 in downtown Sunnyvale, which for my second round or second tour in Silicon Valley was a 5-minute walk. So I would go downtown frequently with the old laptop, doing some stuff in the coffee shops. We were just eating out more than eating in, even though when I did move back to Silicon Valley, I was living in a duplex. So the kitchen was actually pretty big, pretty good. It was it had a space, like a corner for a table, not really a nook, but it was an L-shaped kitchen rather than a galley, or there was no island, but I made an island out of intermetro wire shelving. So it was actually pretty cool. It was a nice layout. It's too bad the fire came not in the kitchen. It was actually in the home next door, and then some wind. We talked about that previously. Put the kibosh on the cooking in the kitchen, especially all the asbestos that fell out of the ceiling. Off to Vegas after that house fire. Some hunting around in Silicon Valley. The message was clear. The ridiculous rents were sending me somewhere else. The move to Vegas was an adventure with less stuff than I had before the fire, of course. I moved into an apartment with a reasonable kitchen. It was a galley kitchen. And proceeded to explore downtown. A galley means that it was like two parallel countertops, the sink on one side, the oven on the other. So they split the countertop, so there was not like a single large countertop surface. Not great, but I moved into the apartment with a reasonable kitchen, like I said, and proceeded to explore downtown Las Vegas in the days of the downtown project. A couple of months in, so I was downtown a lot. I was meeting people. I was getting the lay of the land in my new city. A couple of months in, I started working for Intel, traveling around maybe 80% of the time, which meant the times when I was home were not often in a kitchen with food. I really didn't have much food stored because I was never there. So occasionally I would have some cereal or cook something in the from the freezer, right? But I would head downtown. Hey, I'm in town. I'll go, do whatever downtown. And if it wasn't something microwavable, then it was something from someplace downtown. Maybe items picked up at the Smiths about 1 mile away if I wanted to go grab something for now. But again, so much easier to duck into. And at the time, downtown Las Vegas was kind of on the upswing. So there were new restaurants, cool little spots, trying this out, trying that out, etc. So spending a lot of my Intel money eating in restaurants. Even when I took the layoff from Intel and started working from home, or, staying local, so to speak, there was still the momentum of restaurants and convenient meals. I can't stress this enough, the notion that it was convenient to eat in restaurants. Restaurants were certainly not cheaper, but when I was in my fast food phase, there was always this the dollar menu at McDonald's. Ooh, who knows what's in there. I was wandering around Vegas looking for local startup opportunities, consulting gigs, and so on. So I tended to be out for lunch or dinner, or sometimes both, which made cooking at home not the higher priority. It was, in fact, May of 2018 when I decided to give a keto diet a try that I decided also to cook at home more. Staying on a keto diet, especially when I was just learning what fit into it and what didn't, checking your ketone levels with the serum tester, right? They'll poke your finger and check a drop of blood. So then you really start to see, if I eat a fast food burger, or if eating the wrong things would undo any efforts. So it just became easier to cook at home. I've talked before about my keto diet and the menu I devised. It is a collection of delightful keto-friendly items that worked great for me, and your mileage may vary, but I've actually written Medium articles about this, so that if anyone wanted to argue with me, I would just say, I've already answered this question. You can read that. I think I wrote about 8 articles about it. And I started to see more clearly that food at restaurants tended to be more carbs. I mean, if you spend more money, you'll get more of your proteins, but lots of carbs, more than I was aiming for. And at least in my price range, you're getting the carbs and also lower quality oils and fats. So canola oils or anything bulk is not going to be great because they're buying cheap because of margins. So eating at home was simply easier. It was easier for me to stay out. I wanted to go all in on this experiment with a keto-friendly diet. And as it turns out, it is cheaper to do that. Go figure. I know this is rocket science at this point. So that's where I proactively moved away from eating in restaurants back then, though I still visited food trucks now and then for my keto Cheeto days. Every once in a while, you gotta remember that not everything is like, I can't have that piece of bread. Have a little bread now and then. Although at the time, other food truck owners in the Vegas area were also pursuing a keto diet. So they actually were like, oh, do you want this without any rice? Or, yeah, sure. Sounds good. So that was good. That was actually productive. Then there was the pandemic times, of course. During the pandemic lockdown days, going to restaurants was a political affair for a while. Are we allowed to? Can we chew with our mouths open, et cetera, et cetera? It was a nightmare. People are people are nuts. And here in Vegas, there was an intense pressure to show support for local businesses and their employees by taking deliveries of restaurant meals and tipping heavily. Great. Or we could go to Smith's. Remember, my Smith's was 1 mile away. Or our local, and by the way, that made for good walking outside to walk over to the Smith's. Or our local grocery store, whichever that was, depending on where you were, and accept the hazardous duty efforts of our essential workers to grab some groceries to prepare at home. And by the way, my local Smith's, and if you're not familiar with Smith's, it's a Kroger property, Smith's Grocery, actually did have an early diagnosed COVID case here in the actual, they call it the northwest part of Vegas, but we're in the city of Las Vegas. So according to the Southern Nevada Health District, in the early days of the COVID lockdown time interval, there was one case at that Smith's. So good times. So I stuck to my intermittent fasting, 1 meal a day routine for the most part, and continued cooking at home. A lot of riced cauliflower, a lot of spinach and kale, some feta cheese, sunflower seeds, sun-dried tomatoes, some olives now and then, with the caveat that I was not visiting the gym anymore since it was closed. You probably don't recall this, but my keto success was tied directly to a keto-friendly diet and regular exercise routine. Weight training, not just walking. So I moved to just walking since there was still outside, and outside was still open for business. But it wasn't quite the same. So it's too bad. Too bad. I had and still have a cast iron skillet, and so I learned to use that. Made several omelets and other fun meals in it. And at some point I got a Ninja Foodie, the same style as the then popular Instant Pot, and started to get really into air frying and even pressure cooking. Pressure cooking some, what are they called? Frittata eggs, for example. Delightful. I still have it and still use it to this day a lot, actually. I make some pretty good stuff in the old air fryer / bake. I can bake, don't have to turn the oven on. I haven't pressure cooked in a while. I should get back towards that. I do have like 10 or 12 features that I could try out. At the same time, I was becoming a real home barista with various beans and tools thanks to Amazon. So they could just be delivered to me. Clap the hands and there's a fin to make some Vietnamese iced coffee. And there's a pour over. There's an AeroPress. Ooh, I need another rubber plunger head so I could use my AeroPress again more. So I was making pour over and AeroPress and French press with a hand grinder and so on. Eventually I got a Baratza Encore grinder, the basic good canonical burr grinder that everybody starts out with, I suppose. And I've been using that ever since as well because it's good enough for me. So the take home from the pandemic times, or the stay at home times, as the case may be, once going to a restaurant or getting prepared food became a challenge, or now and then nearly impossible, lockdowns, eating distances, pricing, preparing food and beverages at home was the way to go. And it's not like I didn't know how. I did. And then I got fun tools. The iron skillet was actually really fun. I should use it more. And I would like to think I rose to the occasion, recalling the old ways and then introducing some new ones. And I cannot tell you if I've costed out some of the things I make in the air fryer, and it's not the only thing, but you can make some pretty cool stuff for $5, maybe less. So I do that all the time, and I tip myself pretty well, but the math still works in my favor. It turns out shopping sales on some items at Smith's usually, or sometimes Albertsons, which is a longer walk. I still walk over there. coming up with some menus through the week, not to mention spending maybe $1 per coffee prepared at home. And this is with a nice cappuccino or latte with some really good beans. So $1 gets me a long way. If I'm just making drip, then it's half that maybe. So yeah, $1 is not drip, but I can make a ton of drip for cheap. It starts to become pretty appealing to not spend money in restaurants. Now I know that I'm using a good old olive oil instead of crappy canola or whatever. I'm using Kelly butter, grass-fed Ireland for the win. I'm making nice vegetables and vegetable-heavy meals with some salmon or chicken, maybe other proteins now and then. More fiber, less processed carbs. So vegetables over breads, for example. The good old days when my meals were actually good and cost almost nothing by comparison. Oh, I still do that now. Okay. So today, I have to be honest, I support the notion of small business. I talk about small business all the time in my Cafe Genius Impresarios audio program. Still a fan of food trucks, mobile vending, food and drink innovation in general, all these things. I'm a big fan. But I really cannot see patronizing restaurants without a really great reason. So more power to you. Good luck. Hopefully you're in the minority of businesses that succeed in that space. But I'm not drawn to restaurants anymore. Tipping culture in Vegas is about as out of hand as anywhere else, but everywhere. Prices are not reasonable many times. Of course, anything in the tourism corridors like downtown or certainly on the Strip is even more expensive. Food trucks are expensive also, though I understand their pricing challenges. I really can't justify patronizing them either. I still like them, but from a distance. There's a food truck here called 303 in the Cut for whatever reason. I think that's an area code, but whatever their naming history is, they get great reviews. It's a hamburger truck, hamburgers and sandwiches and so on. I walk by them in the evenings. They are posted up near a hospital near where I live. I think Monday through Friday, but maybe 7 days a week between 5 and 10 p.m. I just have no desire to check them out. So that's me. What am I going to do? The quality of food prepared by others is also questionable sometimes. I'm not complaining about food trucks, but just in general, I once observed, and the place is still open as far as I know, Marco's Pizza. I once observed a person with long black hair and no gloves adjusting that hair. A health department person would be like, "What are you doing? Why are you putting your hands in your hair?" While making me a pizza. That was a rough, ugh, I don't even want this. I never patronized that location again, even though when I wrote to the management, I think each store has a contact email address or something. I said, yeah, this happened. And they're like, "Do you want a free pizza?" No. So I just never went there again, even though it was across the street from where I lived at that time, where I lived back then. Restaurants are so narrow on the margin, money, between cost and price, that ingredients are usually lower price to them to reduce their overall cost, which means, or may mean, lower quality. Those oils, those proteins, all those carbs, lots of carbs. I can make some of my favorite things for pennies on the dollar by comparison, most of the time, or maybe dimes. But generally speaking, especially if I get things on sale, now I live across the street from the same Smiths I used to patronize in the pandemic times and before. So I could just run over there. I could go over there right now, get a full meal's worth of ingredients, cook them up, be all set. And I probably will have spent $5 as usual, whatever I was going to eat today. Knowing what is going on, knowing what is going in. So what are the ingredients? What am I making? Tuning into the taste that I like. It's not really a difficult decision. I'm not spending $20 on something that I can spend $3 on and then add a couple more dollars for the parts that I like or better ingredients or whatever. Obviously we have the internets today where we had no such access to information when I was cooking up TV dinners or snacking at Mickey D's back in the day. I remember thinking that sugar had to be healthier than artificial sweeteners because, what's a little bit of sugar? Where today we know and have access to much more information. And I did tons of research when I was doing the keto stuff. fascinating. If you have any interest in biology or metabolism, the way insulin works, etc. So I thought, ooh, what's a little bit of sugar? But it turns out that's pretty much everything when you're trying to regulate insulin. And by the way, if you've ever read Entering the Zone by Dr. Barry Sears, he was basically on the same track as the keto-friendly diet. Similar stuff was going on. Today, we know much more about insulin sensitivity and the impact of carbs, especially processed carbs without fiber. We know that fiber that seems to have a lot of carbs have the carbohydrates stuck in the fiber, so you don't actually, you can eat a piece of bread or you can eat some broccoli. And the broccoli might show, oh, it has a bunch of carbs in it, but you're not going to get the same spike in insulin. You're not going to get the same amount of carbohydrate bioavailable as you would in a piece of bread, right? The exploration and research that went into my keto experiments were educational and ultimately left a lasting impact, coupled with the pandemic lockdown, along with the general interest in making my own meals, which continues to this day. It all works out to eating in, which I do. I need to, as I've mentioned previously, I think I had an ankle injury over the summer of 2025, which slowed down my visits to the gym because I needed to get back to mobility. So I moved to more walking, and then my waking schedule is totally shifted. So that means I fall asleep at 2 a.m. instead of going to the gym. So once you go to the gym and you get that pattern back in place, it's easier to continue going, but it's difficult to start going, if that makes sense. So I do move around a lot because working from home, you can very easily not do those things. But I do try to stick to one meal a day, which is fine. And I make some delightful things. I've really lately been into, and this is horrible, this is not keto friendly, but every once in a while there'll be a pizza dough ball on sale at the Smiths. So $1.50, say, I can make 2 things. So I, squeeze it in half and take one, so a smaller dough ball, and I flatten it out. Sometimes I put some cheese on there, some goat cheese if I have some, and then some little meatballs, half-ounce meatballs, put about 5, fold it over, press the edges. So it's not quite a calzone, but similar idea. And then I throw it in the air fryer for 10 minutes. Delicious. Dunk it in a little bit of tomato basil sauce, maybe some grated cheese. Total cost of that meal is maybe $3, I think. So it's hard to beat. And I know exactly what went in it. What else have I made in the air fryer with some fish. Cook that up real quick. I sometimes take vegetables and steamed vegetables over some nice, they're organic, but they're not Mirshan or top ramen noodles, the ones that have more ingredients than most other things. So I get these noodles that are like 3 ingredients. They're delicious. Throw some vegetables on top, maybe some teriyaki sauce with garlic. Yummy. That's actually more expensive than the calzone thing, I think, by about $1. But anyway, so I make delightful things, and literally, why would I go to a restaurant and spend $12 when I can spend $3 or $4 maybe at my leisure? And then we're not even adding on the 20% for tips. So if you work for tips, much respect for putting up with it, but it's kind of a racket, and but it is the language of gratitude in Vegas. So that kind of splits the decision pretty easily. Do I want to go spend tons of money for food that may or may not be really great? Or do I want to keep it simple, spend a fraction, know what I'm getting, make the way I like to make it so it tastes great for me, and get on with my day? So that's the lesson learned. It took me a long time. 2018. So that's 40 years or something. It's just the way it is. A little education, a little practical experience, and paying attention. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. Should I go make something? A snack? No, I'm not really hungry right now, but maybe later. I can do that whenever I want. Thanks for listening as always, and I'll try to come up with something interesting for next week. In the meantime, let's do lunch. Bye-bye.